I, like everyone of my generation essentially, I can enjoy a good meme. A well executed meme that makes fun of something political, or even some of the things that are kind of inside baseball for religious themes, doctrinal things, kind of just make fun of stuff. Like, I can enjoy a good meme, and I can enjoy a bad meme. Quite frankly, if I'm totally honest, like I don't have that, might want to say, discerning of a palate that some might have. I'm no connoisseur, but I can enjoy a good meme. But I wonder sometimes what memes are doing to us. And I wonder that for a few reasons. The first is that I wonder if that it's kind of paralyzing our generation in a form of idleness. That you can sit on the couch or in just on your bed or whatever, like you can waste hours at a time just scrolling Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, whatever. Like you can spend hours just scrolling on this stuff, doing nothing. And of course, we know this isn't good for your mental health. That kind of idleness, lack of exposure to the sun, lack of physical activity and such, like that, it's not good for your mental health. It's not good for your emotional stability. That in fact, it ends up kind of perpetuating a cycle of procrastination, guilt, shame, all these sort of things by it. But I feel like even is something of a symptom. It's not necessarily a cause, but obviously that's not a good thing. There's so much out there, literally billions and billions and billions of hours of content out there, that if a person wanted to just sit their whole life in one space and just stare at memes all day, they could do that until they starve to death, until they succumb to their own filth. They could do that in a way that is kind of culturally unprecedented, because the idea of memes, the idea of visually provocative images that are intended to kind of lampoon or satirize political opponents and stuff, that's nothing new. You've got Thomas Nast, you've got the USA Today and other forms of print media, political cartoons, and all of that stuff. It's been around a long time, all the way back to like carved into stone. It's been around a very long time, but not on the scale that we're dealing with right now. And of course, it's another aspect of that. The generations aren't very good at adapting to new technologies and putting in good regulations. And I don't mean like a government regulation, I mean individually putting into place self-regulatory principles, policies that you yourself are going to abide by, so that you can limit the influence that these things are having on you. We're not good at that on an individual level. We're in fact the very opposite of that, that we tend to just pour ourselves into these addictive and indulgent stimuli with almost no regard for how it's going to affect us in the future, or even how it's affecting us right now. So that's one thing I think about. I think about the mental health. I think about the physical activity and those sort of things about it. The second thing I think about it is that I think we're being overwhelmed with this stimuli of things that are kind of ambiguous where they are on the moral scale. The things that they're making fun of, the things that they are lampooning and such. Not just the political stuff, but some of the memes where they're talking about violent acts, criminal acts, conspiracies, government corruption and stuff, that they're bad things. They're not good things by any means, but we see it so much that we're becoming anesthetized to it. We're becoming calloused to it, jaded towards it. It's just everywhere all of the time, to the point where when we actually see real corruption, when we see real crimes being committed, our general response now, it seems, is, oh cool, that'll be good for content later. world star, right? You pull out your phone when you see two people getting into a fight. You don't try to break the fight up. You don't try to negotiate with the partners involved. You don't try to bring peace there. And it's just everywhere this way. It's not just it's not just the Americans. It's not just Westerners. It seems to have sprouted everywhere that humans exist. That this amount of stimulation is paralyzing us. And that in one way that we're so immersed in a culture of grays that we've forgotten where the lines are of acceptable and unacceptable, good and bad, right and wrong. And that we've also seemed to have forgotten that the reason gray exists is the pollution of the pure with the corrupt. And if you've ever done painting before, you can have an entire vat of white paint. You put in like a pencil lead drop of black into that paint, all of a sudden the whole thing is gray. Because that's the way colors work. And that when you're blending these things, that it doesn't take very much corruption to begin to ruin an entire whole of something. The idea of a bad apple and, whatever. But even with where you're talking about like sanitation, this one little grain of bacteria, one single cell, one single insect gets through the gap in a window or over a door frame or something, and that's it, right? All of a sudden the whole colony, the hive, they're all coming in after that, because that's the way these things work. Like you put out one saucer of milk for a kitten, they come back every night. You give a mouse a cookie, he's going to ask for a glass of milk. All those like cliche illustrations, metaphors, and all that, it's all true. And that we are so far down that pipeline already that we're past gray and we're into deeper and deeper shades of black in society that we can't even tell what we started off with anymore. So that's the second thing that I think about, is that what is it doing to our society? And then the third thing is the false sense of activity. There are so many people that you see online that their thing is they share memes about their political, religious, ideological, doctrinal opponents. All they do is share memes and just lampoon and satirize and humiliate and ridicule their opposing side, and they think that that's a form of activism. They think that that's something they're doing that's going to change the world better, make it a better place. And I don't think there's really any evidence to support those notions, other than often like the issues that they're talking about are so big: government corruption or criminal networks, poverty. Like they're talking about big things that are virtually impossible for one person to be able to take down on their own. And so the overwhelmingness of the size, scope of those issues results in an I don't know what to do mentality. And because they don't know what to do, they end up stumbling on the internet. Maybe they're on Instagram or whatever, going back to the very first point of that they're scrolling, they come across memes. Those memes end up kind of caricaturizing their sentiments, and so they share that. They're like, yeah, we're poning the nuke, we're owning the libs, we're doing whatever it is that we think we're doing. Well, but it doesn't help get the poor out of poverty. It doesn't help get slaves out of their bondage. It doesn't help get trafficking victims home safely to their... It doesn't do any of those things. But it gets clicks and likes, and it feeds the lizard brain that we all have into thinking we're doing something when we're not. And so, on the one hand, you have the combination of this absurd idleness combined with a false sense of activity that ends up not helping anyone. And of course, it's still a mental health downward spiral. So, it's something to consider. What are we doing to ourselves with this amount of content that we are constantly feasting on? There's no shortage of it. What are we doing? And how do we fix it?